Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I like books. The smell of pages and coffee calms me. That's why I spend time at our local Barnes& and Noble in Texas. It's not huge. The cafe seats about 30 people, with a few tables near windows. There's a counter area with 4 stools across from the baristas. It's at the entrance of the cafe, and those seats are good since they're close to windows. After years of visiting, I know the store's patterns. I know when to show up to get a good table, which I did today. I sat with the window to my right, counter, seating in front, and register to my left. I felt good about not sitting at the counter. While enjoying coffee and magazines, I noticed what was happening at the counter. Only 2 stools were occupied by a tall blonde woman in her 50s and her teenage daughter who looked about 17. They put clothing, backpacks, and belongings on the other 2 stools, taking 4 seats when they only needed 2. The daughter wasn't even sitting there most of the time. She walked around the store while her mom kept her seat with a backpack. I watched the couple walk in looking for somewhere to sit. They went to the counter looking at the empty stools. The blonde woman told them the seats were already taken. The couple looked confused as they looked at the backpacks, then moved away to find another place. When the daughter returned, I saw the mother's satisfaction as she told her daughter how she protected her seat from people who wanted it. The daughter thanked her. This happened again about 15 minutes later with another couple. They were turned away because the woman said the seats were occupied even though no one was sitting there. That's when I decided to act. I put my magazines away and got ready. When a third couple walked in, heavier set with a country style, I watched them get denied seats too. I smiled and waved them over. I asked if they wanted to sit at my table since I was only using 1 seat at a 4-person table. The husband looked surprised but grateful. He asked if I was sure, saying it was nice of me. I said it was fine, but first told them what had been happening. I explained how the blonde woman had been keeping seats for over an hour, turning people away even though her daughter barely used her seat. They got annoyed hearing this. The wife said it wasn't right and that such people think they own everything. I told them those seats weren't actually taken. Nobody was sitting there, just bags. The husband asked if that was true, and I said yes. I suggested they should just go sit there, adding that if someone showed up to claim the seats, they could move. They looked at each other, nodded, and stood up. They walked to the counter and pulled out the stools with backpacks on them. The blonde woman protested, saying the seats were taken. The husband asked who was sitting there, since he didn't see anyone. The woman claimed her friends would return soon. The wife said they would move when the owners returned, but until then, it was wasted space in a busy cafe. The blonde woman got upset. She gathered the backpacks and purse from the left seats, looking around for support. People were either ignoring her or watching with interest. When her daughter returned, I heard them talking from my table. The daughter asked what happened to their seats. Her mother complained that these people took them despite being told they were saved. The daughter then revealed that her mother's friends had canceled an hour ago, and her mother was just keeping the seats because it was less crowded. The country couple heard this. The husband said they would move if the friends showed up. His wife agreed, saying to let them know when the friends arrived. The blonde woman looked embarrassed when her lie was exposed. She mumbled something and crammed the backpacks and purse onto her stool, making herself uncomfortable. After 10 minutes of this, she stood up and told her daughter the place was too crowded and they should leave. Her daughter looked confused but followed. They gathered their things and left quickly. As soon as they were gone, the country couple turned in their seats, looking at me. The husband smiled and gave a thumbs up. His wife mouthed, "Thank you," across the cafe. I responded with devil horns, feeling like we had dealt with entitlement in our Barnes& and Noble cafe. I've been working at the Golden Spoon for about 6 months by then. It's this upscale bistro right in the heart of the financial district that's always packed during lunch hour. I'm talking reservations booked weeks in advance. People willing to wait over an hour just to get a taste of our truffle risotto. I started as a busboy but worked my way up to assistant manager pretty quickly. The owner liked my work ethic, and I needed the money to pay for my culinary classes. My dream was to open my own place someday, but I wanted to learn the business side first. Working at the Golden Spoon was perfect. I got to see how a successful restaurant operated while making connections with suppliers and regular customers. That Friday was chaos. We had a private event in the back room. Every table in the main dining area was full, and there were at least 20 people waiting outside, all giving me the death stare whenever I walked past the entrance. My boss, the restaurant manager, was running around trying to keep everything under control. Then there was this woman. She had come in around noon, demanded the table for one despite not having a reservation, and somehow managed to get seated when another customer canceled last minute. She ordered a small salad and sparkling water, then proceeded to camp out at the table for the next hour, typing away on her laptop. This wouldn't normally be a big issue, except this was peak lunch hour. We had people waiting, and she had finished her meal long ago. Our policy was straightforward. During rush hours, we asked customers to vacate their tables within 15 minutes of completing their meal if people were waiting. My boss approached her table around 1:15 p.m. He greeted her and mentioned that he hoped she had enjoyed her meal. He then explained that he had noticed she was finished eating and pointed out that we had several parties waiting for tables. He asked if she would mind if we settled her check. The woman barely looked up from her laptop. She told him that she was still using the table and had important work to finish. My boss responded with understanding but reminded her of our policy during busy hours. He explained that we needed to make tables available for waiting customers after meals were completed. He suggested our cafe area might be more suitable for working, mentioning that we had outlets and Wi-Fi there as well. The woman refused to budge, saying she was comfortable where she was and that she had paid for the table. My boss maintained his calm. He clarified that she had paid for the food, not for unlimited table time. He mentioned that we had over 20 people waiting to be seated. The woman replied that wasn't her problem. I could see my boss was getting frustrated. He insisted that we needed the table for waiting customers. He reminded her that he had already offered our cafe area as an alternative. The woman became indignant, asking if he was kicking her out and claiming to know how much money she spent at our restaurant every month. This was a lie. None of us recognized her as a regular. My boss told her that he wasn't kicking her out, just asking her to follow the same policy that applied to all our customers during busy periods. That's when she slammed her laptop shut and stood up. She said that she would leave, but that we had lost a customer forever. We thought the situation was resolved, but then she grabbed the chair she'd been sitting on, one of our custom-made walnut chairs that cost over $400 each. She said that she was taking the chair with her since we were so eager to free up space. My boss stepped between her and the door. He told her that she could not take our furniture and asked her to put the chair down. The woman asked whether he wanted the chair, followed by a "fine." What happened next seemed to play out in slow motion. She lifted the heavy wooden chair above her head and swung it directly at my boss. The chair came crashing down on his head with a thud. He collapsed immediately, blood pouring from a gash on his forehead. I rushed to him while yelling at our hostess to call 911. The other customers were frozen in shock. Our head chef and one of our servers managed to block the door before the woman could escape. The woman demanded they get out of her way, claiming that my boss had attacked her first. Our chef told her that everyone present had witnessed what happened and that the police were on their way. The woman tried to push past them, but they stood their ground. She then started crying. She accused them of assault and claimed they couldn't hold her against her will. I shouted back that she had just smashed a chair over someone's head and that he was bleeding badly. I was pressing napkins against my boss's wound, trying to stop the bleeding. The paramedics arrived within minutes, followed by the police. They took statements from multiple witnesses while the paramedics tended to my boss. The woman continued to lie, saying that everyone in the restaurant was lying and that she had only been defending herself. The police officer told her that they had over a dozen witnesses and security footage. He told her to put her hands behind her back. As they handcuffed her, she was still screaming about suing the restaurant. My boss was rushed to the hospital with a severe concussion and needed 15 stitches. The woman was charged with assault with a deadly weapon and attempted theft. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison plus restitution for medical bills. My boss recovered and implemented a new, posted time limit policy. He got a property of the golden spoon engraving on each chair. The golden spoon is still thriving, though we keep a lookout for customers who linger too long. When someone new joins our staff, this story is part of their training. In the restaurant business, you have to be prepared for anything. I'm a private person about my health. My parents taught me medical issues were personal and I didn't need to share them with everyone. That mindset stuck with me into adulthood, which is why what happened at work last week was satisfying. I've been working at this small retail shop for about 3 years. It's a decent job with flexible hours, which works well with my college schedule. My boss treats employees like human beings. He's understanding, fair, and doesn't micromanage. My co-worker is different. She's been working there for 5 years and acts like she owns the place. She needs to know everyone's business. Who's dating who? Why someone called out sick? What you did over the weekend? Nothing is off limits to her. Most of us keep conversations with her brief and vague. Last month, I found out I needed surgery. Nothing life-threatening but necessary. I have a hernia that needs repair, and while it's a common procedure, the recovery time is significant. I'd need about a month off work to heal without complications. I was worried about telling my boss, concerned about leaving the team short-staffed during the busy summer season. I scheduled a private meeting with him for the end of my shift on Tuesday, but plans changed when we got busy. When closing up shop, I figured I'd quickly mention it to him while we were organizing the stockroom. I told him about my upcoming surgery and explained that I would need about a month off to recover. My boss was understanding and supportive. He told me it wasn't a problem and asked me to let him know the exact dates once I had them scheduled. I thanked him, feeling relieved by his response. Unfortunately, my moment of peace didn't last long. My nosy coworker had been lingering just outside the stockroom door. When I turned to leave, she was standing there with that familiar look on her face. She immediately asked why I was getting surgery, her tone filled with unwelcome curiosity. I felt irritation rise up. This was exactly the kind of personal information I didn't feel comfortable sharing with her. I was about to tell her that it was none of her business when a more entertaining idea popped into my head. I looked her in the eyes, put on my serious expression, then smiled and told her I had cancer. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, and all the color drained from her face. She stuttered and apologized repeatedly. She quickly retreated to the front counter where another customer was waiting. I could see her hands shaking as she rang up their purchase. My boss had seen the whole exchange and was trying not to laugh. Once she was out of earshot, he shook his head and said that what I did was cruel, though effective. I said perhaps she would think twice before prying into people's private medical information. The next day at work was interesting. Word had spread that I had cancer. 2 other co-workers approached me with sympathy cards. One even brought homemade soup. I felt guilty and pulled them aside to explain that I had said that to teach our nosy co-worker a lesson about privacy. They both laughed and understood. One of them had been subjected to similar questioning when she needed time off for fertility treatments the previous year. My nosy co-worker has been unusually quiet around me. She barely makes eye contact and hasn't asked me a single personal question since. Yesterday, I heard her telling a new employee that they should respect people's privacy and that not everything is their business to know. I guess some lessons are learned the hard way. My hernia surgery is scheduled for next month and I'm looking forward to the recovery time away from work and away from nosy questions. And yes, I did eventually tell her I don't actually have cancer. The relief on her face was almost as memorable as the initial shock. I landed a job with a company in the Middle East. The pay wasn't great, but they had this amazing leave policy. 40 days of annual leave plus public holidays, which meant 2 Eid celebrations at 5 days each. They even allowed 20 unused days to roll over to the next year. For someone who values work-life balance like me, this was a major attraction. My journey to this job wasn't straightforward. After graduating with my business degree, I spent 2 years jumping between unfulfilling roles back home. When this opportunity came up through a friend of a friend, I was hesitant about relocating to another country and culture, but the promise of international experience and that generous leave policy convinced me to take the leap. The reality check came quickly. I discovered the workplace had an unspoken two-tier system. Local employees seemed to operate under different rules than expatriates like me. My direct supervisor was also an expatriate, but he had mastered the art of never rocking the boat. 3 months into my job, I requested 2 days off to attend a friend's wedding who was visiting the region. My request was promptly denied. The HR representative told me that I couldn't take any leave until I completed 6 months with the company, claiming it was policy. When I pointed out that my colleague from accounting had just taken a week off, despite starting at the same time as me, the HR person simply said my colleague was a local and different circumstances applied to them. When I brought this up with my supervisor, he just shrugged. He said this was simply how things worked there, and that locals had connections we didn't have. He told me to just wait it out. I nodded and smiled, but inside I was plotting. If they wanted to play by the rules, I could play that game too. 6 months into my contract coincided perfectly with Ramadan. During this month, everyone worked shorter days, leaving around 1 p.m. because of fasting. The HR manager, who had rejected my earlier leave request, approached me one afternoon. The HR representative asked if I would be taking holiday during Ramadan, mentioning that many expatriates preferred to do so. I smiled and asked why I would want to do that. I said we already got to leave early every day, plus there was a whole week off for Eid afterward. I told her I'd rather save my leave for other times. The HR manager said that most people in my position took this time to go home. I replied that I wasn't like most people and preferred to use my leave strategically. For the second half of that year, I enjoyed 30 days off, 20 of my annual leave days plus the 10 days for both Eid celebrations. I spread them out perfectly, taking long weekends and short breaks whenever I needed to recharge. The real satisfaction came in my second year. I had transferred 20 unused days from my first year, plus I had my new allocation of 40 days, plus the 2 Eid holidays. My supervisor called me in for our annual planning meeting. My supervisor asked about my leave plans for the year, explaining they needed to ensure proper coverage in the department. I slid my prepared calendar across his desk, telling him I had it all worked out. His jaw dropped. He said my plan was excessive and questioned whether I really expected the department to function with me being gone so frequently. I explained that I had calculated exactly what I was entitled to: 60 days annual leave plus 10 days of public holidays. I pointed out that I would still have some days left to carry over to next year. He looked at the calendar, then at me. My supervisor said he would need to discuss this with HR. I told him to do so, reminding him that they were strict about following policy, as I had learned firsthand. 2 days later, my leave schedule was approved. The HR manager avoided eye contact with me whenever we passed in the hallways. I began my year of monthly vacations, taking time to explore different parts of the region and even flying home twice. My colleagues couldn't believe I'd found this loophole in the system. Midway through that second year, I received an offer from another company, better pay and better growth opportunities. Part of me was sad to give up my perfect leave situation, but it was time to move on professionally. When I handed in my resignation, my supervisor seemed relieved. He said they would somehow manage without my extensive absence. Before leaving, I reminded him that I would need my unused leave days paid out as per my contract. I walked away with a nice bonus payment for those unused days and the satisfaction of knowing I'd beaten a system designed to favor only some people. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.